Y'all, this guy really likes his coffee. That was the only quippy thing I could think about, but once you watch the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. This this film, it's called The Killer. It came out in 2022, not to be confused with The Killer starring Michael Fassbender that came out in 2023. This is based on a totally different story, totally different person. The only similarity is the title of the movie. Like I said, it was based on a book. I think it was called The Girl Who Deserves to Die or something like that. So this is a South Korean action thriller flick that was recommended to me not long ago, actually. Might have been on a live stream or in the comment section somewhere, but I looked it up, was immediately interested, and was able to actually watch it. It took me a few days, but overall, I have to say I enjoyed it. It was quite fun. The story was interesting. The guy who played the main character, the killer, I can't even remember his name, but I thought he was really good in this role. He was ruthless, he was merciless, and he did not waste time. I mean, this dude would just drop you like that. So I thought he was pretty effective in demonstrating the type of character that he was playing. I mentioned the coffee because there are moments when he's just constantly walking around with a travel cup of coffee in his hand while he's killing people or while he's torturing someone trying to get information. I just thought it was funny, and I noticed that because I love coffee too. The premise of the story is he is a retired assassin. I think he's retired. He's married, settled down. His wife's going to go on a vacation with her friend, and she asks him to look after the friend's teenage daughter. He's kind of forced into this situation, but he kind of goes along with it. I mean, this cold-hearted, merciless killing machine seems to be afraid of his wife, which I found kind of funny. His wife, I wasn't so crazy about her. She would say things to him that kind of annoyed me. I mean, I think if I were a guy, it would annoy me. Whatever. That's minor. She wasn't in here a whole lot. She was just kind of the person that set the plot into motion. So he reluctantly agrees to watch over this girl, but he really doesn't want to, and he sort of sends her along her way, gives her some money, and just wants hair, but she gets into trouble. And so the bulk of the film is comprised of him getting her out of that trouble, and then he realizes as he is going about this process that he has stumbled onto something that's deeper than what he expected. As the movie goes on, more and more is revealed about what's really at play here. There was a moment where once I was realizing what was going on, I actually figured out who was kind of responsible for what was happening, and so that reveal wasn't completely surprising to me. I don't know if it's just because I have a habit of trying to figure out if there's something else at stake or something else going on, and a lot of times there are in movies. A lot of times I'm accurate, sometimes I'm not. I like to be surprised. I can't say that that's a con, that I wasn't surprised at this particular reveal, but I'm just pointing it out. Just because. Something else I also appreciated about this movie was tying back around to what I said about this guy being merciless. Something I like was that when he's encountering these different baddies, and there's a whole bunch of bad people he goes up against, sometimes, or like at least one specific moment, that one of the bad people is a girl. And I like that he did not hold back in treating her exactly like the way he treated the men that he was fighting against. I appreciated that because sometimes, one of the things that really aggravates me in movies like this is when the action hero or whatever, he goes all soft when there's a girl involved and he doesn't want to hurt her. And this guy was like, heck no. And he did what he had to do. And I like that. There are a few cons, and this isn't going to be a really long review. I don't have a ton to say. It's a pretty simple movie. Simple in the sense that this is just the basic premise, but the plot I felt was pretty good. It's only about an hour and a half long. I did like the pacing of it. I don't feel like it was too rushed. I also don't feel like it dragged. So those are some pros. I'm going to step into the cons a little bit. There's just things that stuck out to me. Maybe it's unfair to call some some of them cons, but one of the first things I wrote down was that at some point in the movie, he's having a flashback about a job that he had done. And the way the movie showed the flashback and the way he had conducted this particular kill, the way it was demonstrated, it was like it wasn't evident that he had even done anything, and it felt to me like they should have been a little bit more effective in getting this point. I mean, he tells you through narration that this is what he's doing, but it's not demonstrated accurately on the screen, in my opinion. So that stood out to me. I know that scene was important because it tied in with him as a person, but that was like the first thing. I was like, I'm not convinced by this. Then there are other things, typical things when it comes to action type movies. It feels like he had an endless supply of bullets in that doggone gun, or the guns that he used. So that wasn't handled very well, in my opinion. I don't know why it is that filmmakers seem to have such a hard time keeping track of bullets that are fired in a scene. This is something that bugs me. I know it bugs a lot of people. Sometimes I notice it, but I'm like, whatever. But it really felt obvious in this movie. I couldn't help but note it as something in the con category. But then also there would be times where, magically the gun's out of bullets when the plot calls for it. Another thing that stood out to me, stuff that I've mentioned before when it comes to action movies and fight scenes. Some of the fight scenes definitely appeared to be choreographed. There were some moments where he's taking on a multitude of people. And while there were moments that it seemed pretty convincing, like, yeah, I could see that he could take this number of people out. I mean, he was highly trained. He'd been an assassin for years. And the people that he was fighting, not so trained in that sort of physical activity, combat, they're just like these thugs or whatever. But there is a certain point where numbers are just going to be a little bit too much for a person to overcome, and he was able to overcome them in ways that I didn't find super convincing. It was entertaining to watch the choreography of this, but sometimes, yes, it became obvious that it was choreographed. The guy not able to get himself back together in time to attack him, and then yet at the right moment he was able to try to attack the guy, and then the guy, it became one of those situations where I was watching the background characters like I did in John Wick 4. Obvious attempts to miss while you're throwing a punch, that sort of thing. When you see this type of stuff often enough, you start to recognize. And there were moments where this did become a thing that I recognized. And then there was also a scene at the very end that happened when he's having sort of a showdown with a character, or the character that was kind of at the root of what was happening. And the interaction between him and this person, the way this other person was acting, and the way or something that they did in this scene just seemed a little bit over the top and ridiculous, not very well acted, in other words. And I don't know if I'm not quite sure if that was just the fault of the writing, or if it was also the way the actor displayed themselves in this scene. It just kind of felt a little bit cringe and silly. But despite the fact that I had multiple cons, these really weren't enough to take away my enjoyment of the film. I did like watching it. It was quite a bit of fun. I think any fan of action films, especially fans of South Korean cinema, will probably enjoy this, and it doesn't take a ton of your time. So this is something that I would recommend if you think it sounds like an interesting film that you would like to check out. And that is it. I don't have anything else to say. Let me know if you have a chance to check it out, or if you've already seen it, what you think about it. All right, you guys. Adios.